agenda item. The meeting is being held in our offices at Abbey House, Abingdon. Committee members are here in person, but officers and speakers are able to join remotely. The meeting is being streamed live on our council's YouTube channel for public viewing. The system allows councillors who are unable to attend in person to contribute to the meeting, but only councillors who are present in the room and hear the whole debate are allowed to vote. Procedure matters. The speakers and other members of the public who have logged in remotely, please ensure that your microphone is muted and your camera is turned off for the duration of the meeting until you are called to speak. Marty's going to turn his camera off in a moment. If you share a presentation on screen, please make sure that you stop sharing this when it is needed. This planning committee is a decision-making committee of the council. It is important that the set procedure is followed. All committee members have received a full report on each planning application. We will first hear from the planning officer, followed by the parish or town council, and objectors, supporters and local members. Each group will have 5 minutes to speak to the committee, after which members may ask questions of the group. The committee may then ask questions of clarification of the planning officer. The committee will then debate and vote on each application. Councillors wishing to ask a question or participate in the debate are asked to indicate this by alerting myself or officers by raising a hand. Voting will be by show of hands. Members, please raise your hands clearly and keep it raised to allow count to take place. If it is unclear how members are voting through a show of hands, I'll ask the clerk to undertake a roll call of those present and how they are voting. A few housekeeping announcements. In the event of emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is in the corridor immediately to the right of this meeting room, and go to assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. The Democratic Services Officer present will assist you. Can everyone please ensure their mobile phones are switched to silent or switched off during the meeting? Mine's on, but it's in the car. That's fine. Councillors and speakers in the room, please be aware the cameras and microphones are live for the duration of the meeting and will pick up most things that are said. Members of the public who wish to leave the meeting after their application has been debated are welcome to do so by the route previously mentioned. When the meeting has ended, I will ask for confirmation that a live stream has ended, and at that point, please leave the route meeting and make your way out of the building, remembering to sign out as you leave. Now we'll go back to the agenda. That was agenda item 1. So agenda item 2 is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We received apologies from councillors Ben Manning, councillor Tim Bearder, who substituted for councillor Alexandrine Cantor, councillor Ken Arlott, who was substituted for councillor Stefan Gavrishak, and from councillor Sam Casey Wareham this evening.
Okay, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. To adopt and sign as a correct record the planning committee meetings minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of January 2024 and the 20th of December 2023. Are we content to do those? Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Seconder for that, Councillor Gordon Creed. Everybody happy with those? Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh. Agenda item 4. Declarations. To receive declarations of disposal, pecuniary interest, other registral interests and non-registral interests, or any conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting. I see none. It's worth mentioning at this moment, 34 Upper High Street in Tame. The building is familiar to me from a historical point of view, not from when it was built, because that was Elizabethan times, but I've done some research in that building. Yeah, and the building is going to say, but it has no relevance to this particular application. Peter? No, okay, that's fine. Urgent business?
None, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, public participation and the items on the agenda. The first one is agenda item 7. Can I get the right papers? Which is P22S4346. Timbers in Goring Heath Road, Whitchurch Hill. And the planning officer, I believe, is Davina Stark, who's here. Davina, could you take us through this application, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. This application is referred to the planning committee as the parish council has raised an objection to the application, and the application has also been referred to committee by the local ward member. on the grounds that the altered positioning of the dwelling on the site has resulted in a more adverse impact on the character of the area, and that the dwelling on site has been abandoned, meaning that the principle is unacceptable. The application site comprises a detached chalet-style bungalow and detached garage within a substantial garden, which was granted permission in the late 60s. It is located on the southwestern edge of the built-up limits of Whitchurch Hill. The site falls within the Chilterns area of outstanding natural beauty. There are views into the site from the adjacent footpath known as Goring Heath Footpath on the northeastern boundary in front of the new building. The southwestern and northwestern boundaries are bound by trees and hedges. There is a group of trees along the southwestern boundary that have tree protection orders on them. The application seeks planning permission for the demolition of the existing dwelling and garage and the erection of a replacement 5-bedroom dwelling with a detached 2-bay garage in a different position within the plot. The site has 2 existing vehicle accesses, and the proposal seeks to utilise the existing access onto Goring Heath Road as the main access to the new dwelling. The application site lies on the edge of the village of Whitchurch Hill. As it's on the edge, policy H18 supports proposals for a replacement of an existing dwelling located outside the built-up limits of the settlement, provided that the use of the existing dwelling has not become abandoned, the existing dwelling is not subject to a temporary or time-limited planning permission, the proposed replacement dwelling is not materially larger if it's within the green belt, and that the proposal can demonstrate satisfactory vehicular access and parking arrangements and adequate amenity areas for the retained or replacement dwelling. There is no dispute that the existing building is currently not in use as a dwelling house and hasn't been for a number of years. Proving abandonment is not simple and can be difficult in planning case law. The courts have held that there are 4 factors to be taken into account when considering whether abandonment has occurred. These relate to the period of non-use, the physical condition of the property, any intervening use, and the owner's intention. The question of whether the dwelling has been abandoned was dealt with in an appeal involving a certificate of lawful development for a dwelling house that had not been occupied since the early 1960s that went to appeal in 1999 at Hereford District Council. An inspector noted that the 2-storey semi-detached dwelling had a collapsed roof and front wall. The other 3 walls stood at a height of 3 metres. It was in an advanced stage of dereliction and physically could not be lived in, and it had not been occupied for 30 years. However, there'd been no intervening use suggesting non-abandonment. There was no clear intention of reoccupation in that case, and in that particular case, the dwelling had deteriorated to such an extent that it required major reconstruction, where the inspector considered that it was sufficient that it to indicate abandonment. Using the 4 criteria in that appeal decision, I have applied it to this case. It is clear from the site visit that there has been a period of non-use here. For how long is not known, and I will leave that to the applicant's agent to address that. There does not appear to have been any intervening use since the property was erected, and the building is not in such a poor condition that it would need to be substantially rebuilt, as the walls and roof are still present and intact. The site being purchased in 2022 shows intention from the new owner to continue the residential use of the site. These factors, out of the criteria I've mentioned above, convince officers that the residential use has not been abandoned and the existing building could be restored without any major building operations being carried out. Thus, the principle of a replacement dwelling on site is considered acceptable under policy H18. I do not intend to go through the other main considerations, as these are clearly set out in the report before you, with a recommendation for the committee to grant permission subject to the recommended conditions. I would like to make the committee aware that since the report was published, I consider that 2 additional conditions needed to be added in addition to those listed in the appendices due to the relocation of the proposed new dwelling on the site. I propose that the these conditions require the existing demolition of the existing bungalow prior to the commencement of the development of site, and that the access on Bowsdown Drive is closed up as a vehicle access, only retaining one access for the one new dwelling. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Davina. Mr. Collinson, could you turn your camera off, please?
Yes, sorry.
Right. Your item's on next. Thank you very much. Okay. Right. We have a number of speakers. Is Amanda Holland here? Yep. Okay. Could you come to the table, Amanda, please? And you have 5 minutes when you start speaking.
Thank you. I've brought a photograph of, I haven't started yet. Got a copy of what I'm going to say for you to refer to. Would you find that useful?
That's it. Well, you can pass it around if you wish.
Thank you. I am in a unique position in that I'm speaking on behalf of new buildings and the residents of new buildings because I live there, but I'm also the parish clerk. So this first 5 minutes is on behalf of the parish council. Parish council and the community feel very strongly that this application should be refused. And I would ask, firstly, that the decision on this property should be deferred to enable a meeting to address all of our concerns. I defer to Ms. Sarek. There was some very interesting information there. But I think, going off my script, you can see that that building has been abandoned and has been derelict for over 40 years. We moved in 30 years ago and it has never had any, I think the term is, intention of use. I'd like you to revisit that if you could. I ask that the decision be deferred to enable a meeting to address our concerns. There have been 4 previous refusals and 1 previous refusal at appeal on this site. This same plot under the same planning laws. Can it be explained why this has been recommended for approval when so many contradictions and questions have been raised? Fundamentally, it extends the limits of the village for planning purposes. We know adequate housing provision has already been made in the parish. It's an area of inestimable landscape value within the ANOB. Half the plot remains as a paddock and not a garden. The property remains as derelict as it was deemed in the past, if not more so. Development of derelict properties is in contradiction of H18. And there's been no, well, this is incidental, but there's been mention of a mortgage on the property, but it's never been inhabited. There are no kitchen or bathroom facilities. The drains do not function and never have done. This is an unfair legal loophole. Number 2, the plot within the ANOB is unique. It is protected by planning law. Remember what you saw when you visited this site or what you've seen on these photographs? It's a village green surrounded by mature oaks, bordered by a church and a harmonious circle of houses built over a century ago. The revised plans move the proposed dwelling to fully face this village green. It is not in the middle of the plot as the 3D portrays, but it is up facing the road and the village green. A large modern house with a purple roof and blue windows joining this circle of harmonious houses would be completely unacceptable. They reference the design, which we believe is completely at odds with the surrounding properties, but they reference North Lodge, which is not in its eyesight, but it has timbered detailing and traditional features, none of which are referenced or made any application to in this design. It's your job as councillors to protect our village greens, the character of the village and the architectural character of the area. This needs the right decision as it cannot be undone. Officers have recommended this development, which is 3.5 times bigger that of the original dwelling, and have not addressed so many inaccuracies and unresolved problems on the plans. This proposed property is far too big. It's the original, not the original size at plus 10%, as I understood to be planning law. It's 3.5 times. It will probably sell for £3 million. I ask of how this can be permitted or recommended. I ask that the decision be deferred to address this deviation from planning law. A similar application, less than half a mile away, was refused on identical grounds, and comparisons to this will be made. This was refused on appeal. Could this appeal be revoked? After all, this application had a lower aspect and was arguably less intrusive than this one. What will happen to continuity of planning that you put forward? Number 5, the Ombudsman has recommended the proposals as an improvement on a naturally rewidened space.
30 seconds.
Surely this is not acceptable.
Good to know.
The plot borders the Chiltern Way footpath. This is of significance nationally. The terrace of houses that share this border join parishioners to protect this open and rural aspect. We object to planting of tall trees opposite our homes and respectively ask that we could be consulted on this. Construction traffic will pose a risk to walkers, dogs and children due to its restricted width and no pavement. This will affect the ability of the public to access the footpath and affect the community amenity.
Okay, thank you. That's your 5 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I had a bit more, but it's on.
Richie, have anybody got any questions for Ms. Holland?
Yes.
Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Just quickly, so your feeling is that this is totally out of character with other residences nearby?
Absolutely. It's surrounded by workers' cottages, many of whom are less than 3 bedrooms. This has got a full-size atrium, 5 bedrooms, a double-width garage. You've seen the plans for yourself. It's totally out of character.
Councillor Cantor, you have a question?
I was just wondering that would it not be beneficial for the village to have a developed properties where a family is living and can probably consume in growing and enrich the village rather than an abandoned building?
I absolutely refute that. This property has this overgrown space, has been a haven for wildlife for over 40 years. It was completely abandoned. Bats and wildlife have taken it over, and it was a very pleasant aspect next to a footpath. You must remember that. This is an open space next to a footpath, which could be considered as a public amenity.
Then I heard that apparently there's bad scoping report and
Okay, Councillor Gordon Green,
what you call
you have a question?
One of the first things you said was that it extends the village boundary. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yes, it's a bit complicated, but historically, there was a village triangle which was protected, as I understood. And this is inside that village triangle, which afforded the protection of the village green and its historic aspect. I think under planning laws, as long as you have the limits of the village protected, anything outside is susceptible to planning law. This is protected by the village triangle, but I haven't got a official reference for that. Javina, perhaps you could help. But I feel that because it's the village green with the church, with the historic houses, to plonk, sorry, that's the wrong word, but to have a design such as this with no reference to timber detailing, brickwork, with a heather-coloured roof and blue windows. Please, councillors, reconsider.
We have, excuse me, Chair, have we or planning office, have we seen a coloured rendition of the proposed plan anyway?
We'll come back to that one, please, actually. I've got a question for you, because you keep mentioning the village green.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a plan on the screen behind you. And put it back up again, please. Yeah. I don't recognise the village green.
It's a large.
It's on our plan marked as recreation ground, is it?
It's locally known as the village green. That's where we have the base. Well, if you'd like to call it a recreation ground, I'm quite happy for you to do that. But it is our village green.
You call it the village green. It's okay. Just to be sure, we'll talk about the same piece of ground. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry,
Sorry, councillor Gabbard,
Yes.
you have a question.
yes, just a quick one about you pushing the village envelope. If I look at that particular picture, I see housing on the right, housing on the left, and yeah, that's the plot, and housing on the left, and then up on the left. So therefore, it's well, isn't it classic infilling rather than pushing the village envelope? That's just a question to you.
I don't see that it is. This is an abandoned tiny building which will be replaced.
Sorry,
by-
can you refer to the question, please?
Infilling. There's a historical village triangle which has been protected, and as I did mention, I have no reference for that. But I think you can see the anomaly of this house on
Sorry,
that plot.
Could I ask a supplementary question? What do you mean by village triangle? Because I really don't understand that.
I'm not completely, I don't want to appear stupid, but this is something that's been
It's,
historically.
you referred
referred
to it, therefore I'm asking the
What,
question.
what do you mean by the village?
What do you mean? And where do you
The
mean?
village is a very small rural community with a church and a village green recreation ground. And it's very centered on that place. It's historically should be protected. It's something I've heard of, it's something I know is there, and I would have hoped that.
Can I interrupt you?
Oh, you'll get a minute.
Right.
Don't worry.
Sorry.
Triangle.
Sorry.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you, thank
You
you.
have your
time.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you've raised a few questions for us. Unless you've got another question
Yes,
relevant to
can you point on the map where the center of the village is? Because to me, the plot does look quite away from where the activity, I think, would be on the top right, isn't it? I don't see the plot to be in the center of the historic triangle. And the plot
Well, this is
quite
This is
further
the
away.
pub at one end of the village,
Yeah,
this is the plot
plots look
at the
quite
other
far
end of the
away, isn't
village.
it? So I don't, yeah, so when you,
This is
I
the
don't think we're going to
village
get the
green.
end, the bottom of
This
this.
is the church.
Let the next speaker speak and then we'll
That's
get
the
there.
church. This is the parish hall. There's no buildings of this size anywhere near this protected space.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. Right, our next speaker is Alan Johnson. Okay.
Chair, just before you do, is there a difference between a green and a red? Just for actual purposes?
No.
Right, okay, good. I thought I was missing something.
Can I just say, it's a registered village green.
Oh, okay.
It's registered as well as being the recreation, used as a recreation ground.
Brilliant. Okay, good.
All right then, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
To be fair, that I said.
Yeah, sit there. Yeah,
Well, good evening.
good evening. And you have your 5 minutes from when you start.
I'm a long time resident of Oxfordshire, some 55 years. And I know the area around the paddock. It's under discussion very well and make frequent use of it. In fact, making use of it, I remember my daughter some 50 years ago using the paddock as a playground.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Can you explain what the paddock is?
The paddock is this plot onto which this house
Okay.
is being
Yep, that's fine.
right. That's the paddock. Yeah. So as I say, my daughter used to use it as a playground, including the empty house, which has never ever been used. From this site, the paddock, you can walk a long way. You can walk across the open fields to the small hamlet or Path Hill, with glimpses of the Thames down below in the valley, and then into the woods beyond. It's a magical part of the area of natural outstanding beauty. And sometimes, as here, somebody wants a chunk of it from themselves. Can we have any slides up that you've been displaying? Okay, go on through them.
Would you like photos of the site? Photographs of the site? Are they the
No.
slides you want up, or do you want the plans? Do you like?
Which slide
What
would you
slides
want?
would you like?
Well, one of the plot itself of the paddock,
Yeah,
and then a 3D picture of the application building, and then one of the overall.
we'll see if we can get that. Site to begin with. That's the site. The first
Yeah,
before
that's
and
the
after.
site. Now, that's the site as it once, this is the site, this is the paddock. This is where, on a previous application, this is where Timbers was. Now that has been superseded, and this now has been moved right up here.
That's to your right, yeah.
Just here. And another plot might show where it is.
This is right there.
The one's next to you.
Just
Right there on the screen. You've got both.
Yeah, you've got the timbers, and then you've got the new positioning.
Right, I'm missing that.
So you see the two red.
It's confusing by putting both pictures up there.
Yep.
That's a before and that's an after.
Oh, that's the one I'm sorry, I didn't see that. And that's that. And that's the way it now is. I'm sorry. It's been moved some 20 meters further to the new buildings here, sitting right in its face, basically. And I don't wonder why has it gone from this to that. Well, the only thing that I can think of is that it gives a lot more space down here for future use. I can think of no other reason. This up here is now a front to these buildings here. It's sitting right in their face, basically. Regardless of the thing itself. Right.
You have 30 seconds.
Right. The building itself the site has been under several attempts to put a building on it. The last time was it went to appeal and was rejected by the planning inspector.
Okay, your 5 minutes are up, unfortunately, and I'm sure the committee have questions for you. Councillor Gavishak.
You referred, I think we should explore this with you.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier that you wanted to look at a picture of the actual design of the building.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the planning officer could get that picture up. And I want you to comment on the design of the building.
Question. Question.
The question?
It was more the location rather than the design of the building.
Fine, okay, the design of the building in the location, that would do me.
Right, okay.
I don't know.
There we go. Okay,
Yeah.
so
This
what
is
do
the
you think?
3D, and there's the building, and what you have here is over the back here, you have the old Timbers building, which is still there, still derelict, absolutely empty, never been lived in. And over this side of it, this foliage here, extensive foliage here, is the line of trees which are planned to be planted to actually conceal the building. It says in the report that these are there to soften the outline of the building to the resident. In fact, what is happening is that no one with a £3 million house would want to look out with respect for the humble cottages which are on this site here. That has been put up to provide privacy to this house, regardless and without respect to where the houses are going to be placed.
Okay,
Thank you.
we need to move on. A number of questions. Councillor Kate, Keats
Well,
Rowland.
I just wanted to ask, you've said several times the existing derelict house has never been lived in. What do you mean by never? And how many years do you know that it's been uninhabited?
I've known it for 55 years. It has never had anyone in it at all. There's never been a light shining from it. Never. Nothing at all. It's been totally overgrown with ivy in the last few years.
Thank you. I'll move on to Councillor James Orange. You have a question?
Earlier when we were talking about the triangle, you wanted to look at the screen.
Yep.
Could you point out the triangle?
Yeah, I could point it out for you. The triangle.
Yeah, if we can find it.
If you can zoom out from that map you had.
I think we're not sure what is referred to as the triangle. I'll go to Councillor Sadler for his question.
Village triangle.
Rather than his
Yes.
specific.
Yes, sorry, my question is, you mentioned that the original siting of what was the timbers, the derelict
Yeah.
building. Is it your feeling that people would be less concerned if that was redeveloped, that side, rather than moving to the other side?
Well, the previous application actually had the new building where the old timber was. It's now been moved up to the cottages ahead.
That's the original.
Any other
application, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, yes, okay.
Councillor Gordon Creed.
Given that the site has been part of the village for the last 50 years as an unoccupied site, did the village ever consider registering it as a village green? Is that not something that had come up?
Private land, I think, was the question.
Yeah. Because I thought if it was public use for
I'm not aware of that.
20 years plus, you could register it. Yeah.
My feeling is it's private land and it's not really relevant to this application. Okay. Right, any further questions? No further questions. We'll try to get to the bottom of James Laurie's question, Councillor James Laurie's question in a moment, but I'm confused about what this triangle is, but is it relevant? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure conscious what
Yeah, okay.
if there is any relevance to it.
We'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you very much.
May I continue?
No, that's it. You've had your 5
Well,
minutes.
I've lost a lot of it to answering your question.
Well, they've answered all the questions, so thank you very much for your time.
Fine.
Okay. Ms. Holland, would you like to take your picture away, please?
I will.
Right, our next speaker is Chris Keane, who is the agent.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I've had water, so got a bit of a cough on me, so hopefully that'll be okay. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Keane.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There's quite a lot to talk about, so I'll move on swiftly. I think there's a salient points. First of all, are the abandonment of the building. 6.3 was dealt with very well by Davina, and I think you've read that paragraph. As far as references to is it abandoned or not, Brodie's solicitors have provided some information, and we look at abandonment. The difficulty with the concept of abandonment is that it involves so much on the facts. The facts are there's 4 matters. Is the property capable of accommodating its former use? Yes. It's always been a dwelling. It was built as a dwelling. It hasn't changed from a dwelling. Was the former use a lawful use? Yes, it had planning consent in 1976, reference H60266. Have alternative uses been investigated? No. They haven't. It's always been there. It hasn't been used for anything else, although it's been vacant for some time. What's the developer's intention? The developer's intention is to either refurbish and extend it or build a 1-for-1 replacement. And that's where we are. We're, as far as those, we comply with all those four requirements. So I think, as far as we're concerned, it's quite straightforward where we are. Your planners agree, your planning officers agree. So that's where it is. As far as the history lesson, in 1967, the planning was approved for timbers. 1970, timbers was completed. Mrs. Batchelor then moved in, and we believe somewhere, she had a number of properties, so she didn't live there full time. Somewhere in 1985, she moved out. 86, the forecourt was re-gravelled. This is what's happened. 1997, Mrs. Batchelor died. 1999, various planning applications were refused. Now, it's important to note the planning applications were refused for multiple dwellings, not 1-for-1. So that's the case. This is a 1-for-1 replacement. 1999, the paddocks were tidied up. 2000, the paddock was cleared, gate formed into North Drive, which is the drive that Lorene's talking about being blocked up. There was a dispute, and that was resolved in 2004. Repairs have been carried out to the building since then. We have bits of paperwork about that. There was a mortgage on timbers until my client purchased it in 2022 for about £172,000. It was insured and it was mortgaged. It has inside the building. I've been in there. It's got a roof on it, walls. It has a bit of a kitchen. It has a bathroom. You wouldn't want to cook on it, and the bathroom there and the kitchen's there. So it hasn't changed its use. It hasn't been abandoned as a house. It's always been a property. It's been left rather than abandoned, as far as we're concerned. So the property is capable of accommodating its original use, yes. Is it former use lawful? Yes. Alternative uses have been investigated, no. And the developer's intention is to redevelop it. That's where we are on that side of the fence. As far as other matters are concerned, this is a private dwelling house on a private plot. There's no agricultural use on the building, on the site. It's all garden. As far as the materials of the house is concerned, we are proposing red stock bricks, plain clay tiles, grey aluminium windows. I think some of you remember we did a project in Manor-Croft, in Manor-Croft in Croft Road, Boring. 3 houses on the corner. They're very successfully built. I hope you've seen those. This is the sort of thing we do in South Oxfordshire. They're built, they're approved, and that's our design. So they're not blue windows. They're not the bricks brickwork. It's tile hand and it's clay tiles.
You have 30 seconds.
It complies with policy. There's no issues with bats and the newts. That's all been dealt with. It's a 1-for-1. It's not a village green. It's infilling, and it's already there. And that's where we are really. As far as trees are concerned and planting, we're very happy to discuss tree planting with your planners and the neighbours. And also, we are very happy to discuss widening the drive down to new buildings, provide a wider drive. But we don't want to mention that because that's outside planning.
Okay,
but
thank
we're
you.
very happy to do
That's
that.
your 5 minutes.
Thank you.
You'll take just stay there. There might be some questions. Richie, have we got any questions? Councillor Dragonetti.
What evidence do you have that Mrs. Batchelor lived there?
All I've got is from the information we got from solicitors and persons that were. I can't put my life on it. All I can say is we made as much information. We got as much information we can from the past, from people who knew her, involved, solicitors and friends. That's all I can say. So that's all I can say.
Mrs. You don't know how long she lived there.
Well, all I have the information is that it was built, completed in 1970, and sometime between then and 1985, she did live in it. Not full time, I understand. She had multiple houses, several houses.
Do you know why she didn't pay?
I think that's not relevant.
No, it is because it's a dwelling has to pay domestic rates and.
The planning matter.
Sort of plan.
No, I'm asking for
I
the.
couldn't tell you because we only bought the site in 2022.
Sorry?
My client purchased the site in 2022, so we couldn't tell you. No problem. All we can't do is answer that question.
Councillor Cantor, you have a question?
Yeah, it's just I was wondering, I don't know if it's, so please interrupt me, but is that house, your client planning to live in that house or is it
No,
to?
he lives in, currently lives in Pangbourne.
Okay,
He's lived in Whitchurch in the past. He's a local man. We've designed the house and built it. It's off Cedar Drive. He lived in Whitchurch for a number of years. He's a local man. He's a local builder, Charters Development. He just built somewhere just outside your borough. He's a 70-year-old person.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gordon Creed.
If it's relevant, why was the decision made to move the house from the current footprint to where it is on the plot now, and also the more than 10% footprint allowance? That might be a question for you, Davina, but yeah, I want to ask why it moved.
The house was moved. We wanted to utilise the drive on the main road. We have rights to use both drives, but the other drive is off the private road to the technology centre. So we felt that it'd be better to turn it round and come off the main road. That was a commercial decision, and move around and face the road rather than facing the side. We felt that was a better option, and that's what. And no reason apart from that. And the 10%, I think, we can answer that one. But it's not. Its policy's changed now, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any further questions? Peter, you have another question?
Yes, you said you think this infill development.
Yes. There's not. No. It's a 1-for-1.
That is 1-for-1. Okay. Are you aware of the reason we had heard mention of the planning appeal that was refused? Are you aware of the reasons why it's
And why was it refused? My ask. Was it 1-for-1?
No, it's because the proposal, but would not consider the infilling of an appropriate small gap, and would result in the undesirable consolidation extension of the built-up area of Whitchurch Hill into the countryside. Furthermore, the proposal would result in the loss of an attractive paddock, which is an integral part of this character of this part of Whitchurch Hill in the setting of new buildings, detracting from the character and appearance of this part of the Chilterns area of outstanding natural beauty.
I'm sure Mr. Dean's answers to that, he was not aware of it.
It doesn't matter really. It's completely doesn't make any resemblance to this site at all. We're not infilling. We've got a building on the site and we're doing 1-for-1. It's a completely different policy. It's completely different.
Yeah, sorry. Right.
It's not a green, it's a private
questions. Any further questions? No. Okay, so thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Keane.
you for your time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me time.
Right, Peter, Councillor Dragonetti, it's your time.
Yeah. Yes, no?
Sorry, buzzer.
No, sorry, I thought we were question to officer.
Okay.
Apologies.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, that's right, Peter. Sorry.
Councillor Dragonetti is the ward member or ward councillor, as you're surely aware, so he has 5 minutes.
Okay, well, this is a difficult decision to make. I guess for clarity, I haven't made up my mind as to what how I will vote, so I haven't predetermined my position on this one. But there are a number of difficult issues. There has been the application in the past for 2 dwellings which were positioned very almost exactly where this new big house is going to be in the front of the site. Previously, there had been an application by this developer to replace existing timbers building in its current location, and that was found to be acceptable. But the proposal we have before us tonight has a much greater impact on the character and nature of the area. It's not infilling, as the officers have said in their report, and it does create an extension. It is an extension of the built-up area of Whitchurch Hill into the countryside, which again is contrary to our policies. And I accept the view that it's not an abandoned dwelling because essentially has the capability of being brought back into use. Although I have my doubts, I think any builder would say this one has to come down, has to be replaced from the ground up. So I would, if we are looking at this application, we have to consider the impact of it on the countryside, in the ONB, on the character and nature of the area of the neighbourhood. And this will be a new building, a prominent new building, most prominent one that in the surrounds of the village green, which otherwise is surrounded by sort of 16th century cottages, a 19th century church, and 17th and 18th century, also 18th century and 19th century dwelling. So this is quite a material change to one of the most attractive parts of this particular village. So I want you to consider it very carefully and so that does this development protect and enhance the AONB in which it is located, and will this proposal, like the previous one, result in the loss of an attractive paddock, a paddock which is an integral part of the character of this part of Woodchurch Hill and the setting of the buildings around there. And that decision by this council just in 1999 was upheld by the Planning Inspectorate. And in that time, the Planning Inspectorate and the planning policy has always been towards strengthening the protection of the AONB and not weakening it. So consider it carefully. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, Councillor Campbell.
You said in your speech that it's a very attractive part of the village, and I was wondering if you consider this abandoned building a very attractive.
Well, the bungalow has been hidden by undergrowth, overgrown laurels, for most of the last 30 or 40 years. It was mentioned that the access has been, current access is via the access to the BP Technology Centre, and about a few years ago, the BP asked me if I could contact the then owner and get him to trim the trees back because they were obstructing the sight lines. So the place was completely invisible until a short time ago.
Councillor Sadler.
Yeah, do you accept the premise of it being a replacement one for one? I mean, I know it's a movement,
Yeah.
but do you kind of accept that as a kind of principle?
Oh, well, yes, one for one, like for like, but not something significantly different in a different location. The applicant had put a previous application in for a bigger building, but in the same location as timber. So it was hidden back, pulled back from the village green, and the visual impact was much less. And that's in fact the parish council, it took it on the chin and said, yeah, okay, well that's how life is. We'll accept that. But this present proposal has much more adverse impact. But we can't in the planning committee redesign, at least.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tregory. As local member. Okay, we move on to, I'm sure there's loads of questions for the planning officer. Councillor Cantwell.
I have two questions. Can you clarify why the definition of abandonment seems very important, appear to be important, and what are the implications of if it's abandoned or not? And then if you can clarify on why it contradicts apparently, allegedly, the South Oxfordshire plan, because it was mentioned, but I would like to know.
Okay, so the reason why abandonment comes up is because it's a requirement in the policy 18. So I said it at the beginning where policy HS 18 supports proposals for the replacement of an existing dwelling located outside the built-up limits of the settlement, provided that the use of the existing dwelling has not become abandoned. And then it goes on with other criteria, which are the existing dwelling is not subject to a temporary or time-limited planning permission. It's not materially larger if it's in a green belt, and then that the proposal can satisfactorily demonstrate vehicular access and parking arrangements. So it's specified in our local plan policy as the wording, but there's no definition of abandonment in our local plan.
But it's not in the green belt.
It's not in the green belt, correct? So I'd just like to say, I think it was mentioned earlier about the 10%. That was a very old policy which no longer exists. Now there's no volume limit of 10%, there's no limit. So we just have to consider that as part of whether the design is materially impacting the character of the area in terms of its size.
That central government removed that limit, or is that, yeah,
It's your policy.
our policy?
Yeah.
Were you reaching it back?
Yeah, I think it used to be you're allowed to do the 10% anyway, so that was permitted development. So it was had in the political. And that's gone from the
It's
policy.
been removed, yeah, it's no longer in the policy.
Councillor Gabishak, your question.
Yes, before I go on to others, because I think this is an important decision, obviously. I'm just going to explore the abandonment bit a bit further. I apologise. There's a dwelling there, and it's, to all intents and purposes, being abandoned. What relevance is that to building another huge building in another part of the site? I would have thought if there's a dwelling there that has been abandoned, then there is sort of a precedent for improving the building on the actual footprint, making it larger, if you wish. Larger would be subject, of course, planning permission and design. But what is the relevance to abandonment to actually demolishing the existing dwelling and moving it there?
I don't think I understand the question that you're asking. Obviously,
Well,
the abandonment is a criteria policy. So, in terms of planning, in terms of planning use, the land has had permission for a house to be built on that land, and that house was built in the late 60s, 70s in that spot. So there is a resident, in terms of planning law, there is a residential use on the site. And it's clear on the abandonment issue, it says, has there been any other intervening uses on that site? There hasn't. So the residential use remains despite no one living in the house, if that makes sense.
So
what?
I think what Councillor Gabishak is concerned about the size of the plot. But I
Yeah.
don't think the size of the plot is material because it doesn't matter how big the
No,
plot is.
what I'm doing is I'm questioning whether abandonment is relevant at all.
Right, so-
Because
Sorry, yeah,
we've got a building here, it's been abandoned. This is a new planning application for 5-bedroom huge building in another part of the site, a completely new building. So what is abandonment? If it's been abandoned and you're redeveloping the existing building, fine, I could see that that's relevant, but you're demolishing the abandoned building. And what I really want to know is what in planning terms is the relevance of the abandoned building if you're building a five-bedroom one over there. Sorry,
You have a policy, H18, as described, which is for replacement dwellings. This proposal before you is a replacement dwelling. Part of the criteria to assess that it comply with the policy is the question of is existing property abandoned, which if it has gone through and explained through the courts, it's actually a set of appeal decisions, but also through the courts set out the criteria, the 4 points that I think Davina set through. And we as officers are advising you it is not an abandoned property. So therefore, the policy H18 replacement dwelling applied, and it applies to the site. The residential use, the curtilage of the whole site, where you can replace the dwelling within that property, within that curtilage.
So in policy terms, you could put a new building anywhere on the site, provided subject to.
Yeah, so there's still the issues about overlooking
and all that.
Side.
Okay, fine, that's all. That's clear.
No, it's worth exploring the
Yeah,
point, you know, really.
Can I then just explore what might be slightly easier things? In 1999, plan permission was refused for 2 4-bedroom dwellings. It was refused for 2 4-bedroom dwellings. This is a 5-bedroom dwelling, so similar massing. Why is the was that inspector's decision taken into account when you came to your decision?
I think in regards to this application and that application, they're very different. That was 2 additional houses on the site with the existing timbers there. So obviously that was in 1999. We had a different local plan there, and I'm assessing the application as it is now. So it's not comparable. They reassessed applications on their own merits, because this is for an addition of that refused appeal decision was 2 additional houses on the site with timbers remaining. So it has a different impact.
Final question is this: do you have any pictures of the surrounding houses,
Yes.
so we can actually see the comparison between the surrounding houses and this new one? And that's my final question, Jeff.
Through the chair, through the street view to assist. We have got obviously photographs, but we thought this might help.
Yeah.
So the site is on the left of that green.
The site's behind that green hedge.
Yes,
It's a lane going down to the technology
Yeah.
Yeah,
centre. So the site along the frontage.
Yeah.
Can you also show the houses going north on the west side of the?
We'll get there, I think, Councillor McDonald.
I've got.
That's the,
So that's the proposed, that's the existing access that they want to use as the main access onto Goring Heath Road.
buildings behind here, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think.
Not too far.
I'm going to bring up a photograph of the cottages that are down.
That's further down the road from the application site.
Across the road.
Right, I could see some quite large houses
There
behind
they
the
are.
green.
They're
There's the
They're the
cottages.
They're the
cottages
cottages.
called new buildings.
And that's what they're proposing to screen.
Well, the plans showed some landscaping, and we've conditioned that because it's not detailed at the moment. So we've conditioned it to be details to be provided for us to sort of assess. I think there's a very low shrubs or hedges along there. There's another picture.
Chair, may I ask another question?
Yeah, I'm just sort of.
That's the existing boundary at the moment, and the lane on the left is the lane access to new buildings, and then it's also a public footpath.
Okay. All right. Have we got enough of that? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Gordon Creed, another question.
You haven't seen exactly where.
Sorry, Matt. Sorry.
You conditioned at the beginning, a couple of new conditions.
Yeah.
One of which was demolition of the existing.
Yeah.
Timbers. What? Can I question that, please?
Yeah, that is just so that there remains one dwelling on the site and not 2. Because if I forgot to add it when I wrote the report, and it was only afterwards I realised that if I didn't add that condition, effectively 2 houses could remain on the site and they could redo up the existing timbers, and then there would be 2 houses. So in order to avoid that, we're basically saying we'll allow the new house if they remove the timbers first.
And does that mean that in the future they can't divide it and then build another house as infill?
That would require a separate planning application to be assessed. Yeah, so it's not something a reason to think about at this moment. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's really valid. Any other question? Councillor Sadler.
Yes, so the siting of new timbers, it looks like on that plan, it's not immediately by those cottages, is it? It's actually a bit further forward from them.
Yeah.
Page 46.
So the screening,
In your
am I right in saying the screening of that? Yes, so
it
that's
shows the new property, the proposed planting that we take off to the short back, and the existing cottages, houses and the lane.
Because they're not directly related.
So my question is really, do they need all that screening there? Because I think that one of the problems is that you've got all that additional screening, which is going to really change the environment for those cottages, isn't it?
Yeah.
In fact, they don't need that screening there, do they? What they need is screening by their double
I
garage.
think all that's up for discussion afterwards. That's what they're saying. It's
We put a landscaping condition on, so which means that they need to submit details of landscaping as a discharge of condition. Then we can negotiate with them during that application as to what we feel would be appropriate and not appropriate. So if we feel that there's too many tall trees, we could ask them to remove them. So that's why the condition is there.
Just a clarification. It's very quick, yes or no. Just I heard from the speaker that the location of the house could allow some speculation about the future. Can you confirm that is outside the scope for the planning matter for this application? Because it's speculation.
That's correct.
Yeah, so we can't assume.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dragonetti.
Yes. Do you think your recommendation is in conflict with the decision that was made in January 99 in respect of the loss of an attractive paddock and the undesirable consolidation extension of Whitchurchill into the countryside? Do you think you're in conflict with that decision or agreement?
I mean, I think that was a very long time ago. The site, obviously, they're two separate applications. So I think I've assessed it as the site is now, and I'm taking into consideration very carefully the impact on the A and B.
So what's the difference
difference
between
is-
1999 and now?
The difference is the number of houses on the site compared to now.
And your local land policy.
It's
Some policies
changed,
have
yeah, the policies have changed.
Yes,
Very different policies.
I'd like to point out I was 6 in 1999, so that was 25 years ago.
Yeah, but there's been no other development around this location and there's been no other adverse impact on the ANB.
I think we're into debate, Peter, not questions. Sorry.
Ask the question.
Councillor Gavin, I must insist these are
And it
questions.
will be a very quick one. I apologise to Sam that you were only 6 at that time. I won't comment on what I was. Is there a way in planning of actually putting a condition that no further development on this site take place?
It's inherent.
No, that's why you need a new application.
New
It's
application.
inherent within the application.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, okay. Right, are there any further questions? See none, so thank you very much, Sabina. Yeah, okay. Which means now we're going into debate and I need a motion. Councillor Cantor,
I would like to propose a motion to go with officers' recommendation.
thank you very much. Is that
That's the two new
seconded?
conditions.
Huh?
With the two new
With
conditions.
the new
With
condition.
the new conditions. Is that seconded by Councillor Gabrishat? Yeah, okay. Do you wish to speak now or of your? Because after Councillor Cantor.
Yes, I'll speak now. There is an existing dwelling. We've explored the abandonment and all of that jazz. It's a large plot size. There is an existing dwelling on there. Yes, they are moving it. They are providing screening that screens from the cottages to the right. I'm looking at it, and therefore I can see no reason for refusal.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gabrishat. Councillor
With
Cantor,
the
you
conditions as explained.
make your proposal speech.
So everything that Stefan said before me, and I would say that I apologize to the ward member, but I don't see that abandoned building to be an outstanding part of the village, and I think this dwelling, it's bigger, but at least it will be used by someone that might contribute to the village in some way. And I think I hope that the loss of the biodiversity from that wild space would be replaced by hopefully a nice wild garden, but it's outside our control. But I think it's an improvement for the village from the abandoned.
Thank you. Okay, we're into debate. Anybody wish to speak in the debate? Councillor James Warren.
So, I mean, the house hasn't been lived in since at least by anybody since the 80s. I wasn't even born then. It's now rewilded by itself. It's been used as a nice landscape and has now, in fairness, enhanced the area of now outstanding beauty in the location it is. I'm not really sure how the design of the house is a one-for-one. I understand we've removed the size, but it doesn't sound like it's actually going to enhance the area because you're taking natural beauty and you're replacing it with unnatural.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Snodgrass.
Yeah, I think it's regrettable that they're changing the site position. I completely accept the view that it's a one-for-one replacement and there's not any real good grounds for refusing it. But it is unfortunate that they've changed the position. I mean, they've had to put different things about light coming from the house. I mean, it's, you know, it's going to be quite uncomfortable for the new owner to try and fit in with all these different conditions. It does seem a shame that they didn't just go for redeveloping the existing plot, the exact position, you know, because that, to me, that would have been a lot less intrusive for neighbours. But on the whole, I feel that actually one additional house for those neighbours is it could be a lot worse, frankly.
Okay, is there any further, Councillor Gordon Green?
Well, I agree with Councillor to my left here that I feel really quite sad for the village that a site that has been a village amenity for the last 50 years is now going to have a very large house impacting the landscape, impacting the village amenity. Huge loss of biodiversity, because regardless of the biodiversity net gain shown here, there will be a 20-year loss before there's a gain. And I feel really sad about that. I completely accept that site is residential use. I would have felt a lot happier if the replacement building had been of a similar size and in a similar location with as little impact on the rewilding and the natural elements that currently exist, which is irreplaceable. You cannot gain 50 years of invertebrates and mammals that have used that site. That will be now, you know, a few years of big machinery and equipment and carbon footprint going on and noise and everything else. So I just want to register that I feel really sad about that. I know it's not relevant, but yeah.
Like you said, it's
Yeah.
Any further debate? Yeah, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Oh, you've got the right.
Peter might put his hand up.
Yeah, well, I think and this is this location is an opportunity for something good. But we haven't got something good here. We've got a sort of, you know, rather out of the straight out of the builder's playbook, with you know, red bricks and clay tiles, and you know, they claim it's sort of matching their Chilton's design guide, but has nothing in it there. It doesn't have any relationship to any of the existing buildings around the green, the recreation ground. And it's, you know, its location is put in the, you know, the biggest in your face location that it could possibly find. It could have been set back where the existing bungalow is to be considerate and polite development, but no, it's sort of there. You know, a mega building, mega in your face, and it's has no contribution to the AONB. As a development in 1999 had no contribution to the AONB, which at that time our officers refused and was upheld by the planning inspectorate. And I'm quite sure that the parish clerk, he did mention that an application down the road had been refused, and also gone to planning and refused. Gone to appeal as well, also refused. very similar, on the same side of this road. I think, this one was, we should be turning this one down and letting it go to appeal and getting refused again. So, but, you guys, you seem to be happy with it. So, let's see what the vote is.
Thank you. Right, I think that's the further debate. So we'll go to Councillor Cantor to sum up.
Yeah, I would just say that there's like a regret about not redeveloping the existing, but we don't really know what is the structural integrity of the existing house that hasn't been occupied for years. So maybe they thought that it's best to restart from scratch. So that would and then while you start with a blank state, why not just take advantage of it? Who knows? I don't know, but I don't see any reason to refuse. It's 1 for 1. I still think that a habited house is better than an abandoned one. I regret as well the loss of biodiversity and perhaps the loss of use of this abandoned space, but it was not supposed to be a public space, it was supposed to be a plot. So yeah, I don't see any, I hope many trees will be planted. I hope the garden will be less artificial, and I urge the committee to recommend officer's recommendation
Okay, thank you.
with the additional 2 conditions.
For the additional 2 conditions, yeah. Okay. All right, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation, would you please show, please? 2, 3,
6, Chair.
that's 6. 6, yeah, all those against?
3.
So as you carries. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you. That was a long one, a lot of debate. So I think there's a lot of ground to cover there. I'm going to get myself a drink. Anyone else wants to? Yeah.
Councillor Henry.
Back in the room.
Really well back in the room. Okay, right, we'll carry on. Thank you for that. That was a bit longer than we thought, but there was an awful lot of points to get to grips with, and kind of drags up in the wrong direction at times. Yeah, okay, now we'll go to Henley. P23 S1793. I'm trying to look what it is actually. It's start building materials and it's building site. No, building versions. Juicens. The planning officer is Caitlin Philpott. So welcome, Caitlin. Could you take us through the?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, that's us.
I'm sharing the wrong screen. My mistake.
That is.
Like a fence.
This application is called to Planning Committee as the officer's recommendation of approval conflicts with the views of the Henley Town Council. The local board member has also exercised their right to call it in within the prescribed.
Can I ask which one it was that you called it in? We did think that, but
The application site contains an existing builder's merchant located off the Reading Road within the built-up limits of Henley-on-Thames. The site does not lie inside of any designated areas, but borders the Henley-Reading Road Article 4 Conservation Area to the south, the Henley-St Mark's Road Article 4 Conservation Area lies to the west, and the site is bounded and contains a number of mature trees, of which a group lying along the northern boundary towards the front of the site are protected by way of a group tree preservation order. In 1986, planning permission was granted for an expansion of the trade facilities on site. Planning permission was approved subject to a condition requiring a landscaping scheme to be agreed, implemented and maintained for a period of 3 years upon completion of the development. There is no record of the landscaping condition having been discharged, no agreed scheme on file, and no record of a formal enforcement notice having been served in this regard. The breach of plan control with regards to this permission and its conditions is now immune from any planning enforcement action and does not form a material consideration in the assessment of this current application. The removal of the existing trees and hedging along the southern boundary of the site would not be in breach of any planning conditions remaining at the site and would not constitute an act of development under the Town and Country Planning Act, and therefore does not require planning permission in its own right. The application seeks planning permission for the removal of the chain link fences, conifer trees and hedging along the south-eastern boundary and their replacement with a 3-metre high close board timber fence. On the 28th of November 2023, amended plans were submitted which include a scheme for the retention of the mature trees at the front of the site, additional soft landscaping and ecological enhancements alongside the proposed fence. Plans provided show a landscaping scheme comprising a mix of approximately 6 native hedge species covering an area of roughly 132 square metres along the boundary, supplemented by 11 trees of 2 species at regular intervals. Whilst the existing conifer hedges and trees are not protected and are of no particular arboricultural or ecological value, officers do consider that soft planting in this location contributes positively to the landscape character of the surrounding densely built up environment. It also goes some way to mitigate the visual impact of the utilitarian commercial buildings upon their setting. The usage of the existing soft planting from public vantage points inside the surrounding conservation area are limited. Whilst its removal does not require planning permission, officers are generally satisfied that the removal of the existing hedge would have a neutral impact on the flora character of the surrounding environment. The proposed fencing would have very limited visibility from any public vantage points outside of the site, with the exception of the westernmost section of fences where the site is accessible via the Reading Road. Given the commercial character of the site's frontage, officers are satisfied that the visibility of the proposed fence and existing fences shown to be retained across this section of the Reading Road would not appear harmful to the existing character of the surrounding area. Council's forestry officer has considered the submitted scheme and, subject to the implementation of the proposed landscaping and the submission of full details for the protection of all existing trees which are shown to be retained, raises no objection to the proposal. The proposal is accompanied by an ecological report supported by biodiversity metric information which demonstrates that a 10% biodiversity net gain can be achieved on the site. The council's ecologist confirms that the headline figure is achievable based on the submitted information and raises no objection to the proposal, subject to conditions securing the proposed planting. I've gone on with my slides. The proposed 3-metre high fence would replace a dense screen of significantly high conifers. Whilst this would be likely to increase visibility of parts of the site from the upper storey accommodation at some of the Park Road properties, the impact of the development proposal upon the private views is not a material planning consideration. There would be no significant impacts in terms of losses of daylight, sunlight, or privacy. Site lies approximately 150 metres southwest of the River Thames, but does not lie inside of any flood zones. The area is not known to be at risk of flooding from surface water extent. Officers are satisfied that the proposed scheme would not have any material impact in terms of flood risk in the locality when compared with a similar scheme which might be implemented without the need for planning permission. In officer's opinion, the proposed development is acceptable with the recommended conditions. The application is therefore recommended for approval. I would also like to note, should the application be granted for planning permission, officers suggest a minor alteration to the wording of condition 4, the landscaping implementation, and replace prior to the first occupation of the development with within the first planting season. Thank you, Chair.
Assuming that's because it's already occupied. Okay. I think the relevant picture there, bottom right, which shows the conifers. Right, okay, we have a number of speakers. First one is Councillor Tom Buckley from Henley-on-Thames Town Council.
Good afternoon, good evening even.
Good evening, Councillor Buckley. You have 5 minutes starting when you first speak.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of points to make. We obviously knocked this back at planning for a few reasons. I'd like to go through the planning officer's comments. The first one was around the principle of proposed development, I believe. Somebody just check that again. It is that we have proposed development. The principle of the proposed development is that the removal of the hedge wouldn't constitute an act of development requiring plan permission, which we do not have an issue with. However, the next paragraph, there seems to be a selective reading of this paragraph. It says that the scheme for the landscaping includes the construction of screen fencing and planting of live trees and shrubs. The scheme will be implemented based on something approved by the local planning authority, and the scheme will be implemented as approved and maintained in accordance with the approved scheme. So the first thing is that the principle of this is that what was planted shall be maintained. I don't believe that, and I think it's clear from some of the respondents, that this scheme has been maintained. It may have been maintained initially, but it has no longer been maintained. And we have seen that through the death of some of those conifers. I will also point out that potentially the death of those conifers has actually led to damage to neighbourhoods or neighbouring gardens where there has been sinkage. The other aspect of this that has been called out is that there's no record of any scheme being approved or any planning permission or any planning control breaches expiring. I would like to ask, firstly, how can we prove that when, if there's been any breach of planning control, where would the records have been held? Have the records been lost in the Great Fire of Cromarsh Gifford? And given that it was like 9 years ago, are we in a position that the 10-year period of immunity, I'm unclear as to the relevance of the breach of planning control and when it would have been implemented. Is it based in the last 10 years or is it based in the 10 years coming up to that? The point being that there is no evidence for, but there's also no evidence against. What is clear is that the hedge has not been maintained according to what was originally asked. The second point I'd like to bring up is that there is a impact, the planning officers call it the impact on the character and appearance of the area. The appearance of the area, it says the hedging is not a species of arboricultural quality or biodiversity value. This is taking it purely in the context of the hedge in itself. From the neighbour's perspective, that hedge provides significant environmental benefits. We've got birds, we've got wildlife, there's a lot around there. What has been called out is that eventually there will be a net biodiversity gain of 10%, which may happen in the next 10 to 15 years. So for the next 15 years, there's no biodiversity gain. There is a significant loss. Thirdly, we would like to call out that this conflicts with policy N12. It states the merits of development should be balanced against the adverse impact on human health, natural environment, or local amenity, including noise or vibration, smell, dust, odour, light, gases, and other emissions. I think the fact that we are next door to adjacent building merchants, there's a lot of dust, there's a lot of smell, there's a lot of vibration and noise. Removing these hedges will actually conflict with policy N12. Likewise, policy DES 6, residential amenity states development proposals should demonstrate they will not result in adverse impacts on the amenity. However, we remove the hedges and there is obvious impact on dominance, visual intrusion, noise, vibration, smell, dust, other emissions. This is a building merchants. That is built as building merchants. Thank you very much. The last point I'll call out is simply that should the planning permission be given for these trees to be removed, there is the possibility that when the roots die, there is significant subsidence to the gardens of the properties directly where the fences are. And are SODC willing to accept potential liability in giving planning permission and then accepting damages afterwards?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Buckley. Thank you, that's your time. Anybody got any questions for Councillor Buckley?
Yeah, probably.
Yes, Councillor Buckley.
Councillor Buckley. Some of these conifers have been trimmed already, haven't they? And they've resulted in a very bad. You can't really trim Lawson cypress without them having a deleterious effect. What do you think should happen? What would be an alternative that would?
So I think in this case, what we're actually asking for, we appreciate that there is a problem in trimming these, in maintaining them. The ask for original permission was to maintain them in an ongoing fashion. We would like further green screening. They've proposed to put in 11 trees, and on the diagram, it's very easy to show 11 trees as taking up a significant amount of space. We all know that 11 trees do not look and will not will not fulfill the same area as those numerous conifers. So we would like to have further green screening, and we would like an ongoing maintenance strategy to be supplied. That's the main ask, really. You know, if we're going to take them down, we would like them replaced like for like. Well, not like for like, more conifers.
The forestry officer of Southern Vale advised that they would want a general tree protection condition, and maybe we could add, I will ask the officer if it's possible, but we could add the condition to have a net gain of biodiversity with more landscaping. Would you be more comfortable with the application if we added more landscaping condition?
I think there's definitely an acceptance that we would like more screening. This is a very busy site. It is very busy, and it's difficult to say that 11 trees will provide a net biodiversity gain of 10%. But yes, the aim is to not just provide biodiversity gain, but also to help with the neighbours.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Roy Collinson, who is from Dewsons. He's a supporter. We did see him earlier. I know it was quite a while ago. Mr. Collinson? Yes, he is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm a property manager responsible for. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mr. Collinson, but I can't see you.
You want to see me as well? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
I'm a property manager responsible for the Dewsons properties in the southeast and other properties belonging to the Stark Group throughout the UK. This matter arose, as far from my perspective, following a couple of complaints that were received from residents along Park Road regarding loss of light and encroachment, with particular emphasis on encroachment. Following those complaints, we appointed an arboriculturalist to inspect the trees on the site. He didn't just look at these; he looked at other trees on the site as well. And we also had a meeting, or I had a meeting with one of the residents, and myself and a colleague had a meeting with the other complainant. Okay, the arboriculturalist explained that the Lawson cypress trees, which are circa about 8 metres high along the stretch, a significant part of the stretch behind I think old railway houses along the border there, are no longer capable of being pruned sufficient to really make any difference without killing them. If left as they are, they'll continue to expand, and the loss of light and encroachment onto adjacent gardens will only get worse. So the scheme proposed is, as described by Caitlin, to remove the 2 metre high concrete post and chain link fence, erect a 3 metre high close body timber fence, and that would be to retain security to the site, the timber fence, and undertake a tree planting scheme with more appropriate trees which have been recommended. That's really the crux of it. Something's got to be done. It cannot be left as it is. I cannot comment on what hasn't occurred in the past regarding maintenance of them trees. I do know that them trees are not a particularly suitable tree in the first place for a boundary, and I think that's been a more common realisation in recent years. So we have to do something about it. the scheme put forward, I think, addresses that situation. And that's where I'll leave the matter.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Collinson. Committee, have we got any questions? Yes, Councillor Draghetti.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. It's not clear from the plans as to the whether the fence is on the boundary and the planting is inside your yard, or whether the fence is inside a bit, your yard, and the planting is outside. Could you sort of clarify that?
Well, I think there's a passageway along the back of the gardens, isn't there?
Yes.
I assume that's a shared passageway, so I'm not clear about the ownership of that passageway. I mean, the trees are, from what I can gather, within our boundary, but they clearly expand both directions, take up an abnormal amount of space within our site, as well as at the other side of the fence.
Yeah, so is the new planting going to be inside your site or outside it?
It's the planting is shown on the drawing, isn't it? On the inside of the of the fence on our side, yes.
Okay, okay. Sorry, our plans aren't clear. So thank you. You're going to be inside in your yard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's in colour. We've got it in black and white. Councillor Cantor.
The officer mentioned that we could rearrange the landscape to have at the very end a net gain value with better trees. And I was wondering if you are happy to accommodate that, and if you were receiving advice to replace those trees with better trees for the area, that will be a better quality for biodiversity to replace those ones that were deemed.
I believe that we appointed somebody that specialises in these things, and the trees that have been recommended are appropriate for this. So I don't know what you mean by better trees.
Well, good. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go back to the officer on that question. Councillor Gordon Creed.
I think the issue there was also the fact that those conifers have had a long time to overgrow, and they are an issue. But whatever you replace with is not going to, it sounds like, provide any green screening or environmental mitigation to do with noise and fumes necessarily for a very long time. So the question I would ask is, are you willing to add to the green screen element so that those can be mitigated sooner?
Well, that's something that, that's something that I suppose we would have to go back to the professionals that have advised on this subject, because the way that they've been arranged is as recommended. I'm not a specialist in tree planting by any means, so we'd have to take further advice on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cavershire.
Just a quick question. We've just established that there are the terraced houses, there are the gardens, then there is a passageway at the back, then the proposal in the plans is for the fence, and then the trees inside your site. Would you be willing to consider it the other way round? In other words, the trees along the passageway and the fence within your site, so that it provides more of a green screen to the residents of Park Road?
But the trees, there's the passageway, and then there's the wall there, isn't there? That's a wall that we're looking at on the passageway.
Yeah, that's the bottom of the gardens, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a wall there.
Yeah.
So
But
where, you know, where
is...
the trees at the other side of the wall, aren't they?
So
yeah,
there's the wall at the end of. I just want to get it clear. There's a wall at the end of the garden. Then you're proposing the trees, then the fence within your site, not the other way around. That's one thing I really do want to make clear. Is it trees, then fence, site, or is it fence, trees, site?
Fence,
I think it's the latter.
It's fence tree. I believe it's fence tree. Yeah, if it's not that way, then maintenance is going to become much more of an issue, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Well, not if there's a passageway down there.
Yeah, but the passageway is there's the gardens, then there's a passageway that runs down the length of that terrace, and then there's a wall, isn't there? So I assume that passageway. I don't know who owns the passageway, but I assume I assume it's just a shared right of way amongst all them residents. So.
But what I'm asking you is, for the residents, it would be better for them to see a green screen rather than a fence with trees like lollipops popped up outside. Would you consider that?
Again, that's something that we would have to take advice on, because we've got to think about, we were going to be asked to maintain these trees going forward. And if you've got a fence that obstructs accessibility to them and a wall at the other side, that's going to be problematic, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think we've explored that as far as we're going to get there.
Yes.
Any further questions for Mr. Collinson? I see none, so thank you very much, Mr. Collinson. Thank you for your time and presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we now go to the ward councillor. Do you want to speak as ward councillor?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee. I think the thing that this particular thing hinges on is actually and I know it was deemed that it wasn't a planning consideration, the convenience of the neighbours and residents. But this is a terraced road, Park Road. They've got gardens, and they are seeing the conifers at the moment, which is green space, apparently of low arboricultural value. I think if you speak to any green people, you will say that conifers do have arboricultural value. But anyway, let's pop that to one side. But it's going to be replaced with a 3-metre high fence that they're going to be looking at, with lollipop trees popping out the top. Therefore, I would like the trees to be seen first and then the fence. The other thing I will actually say on page number on this. So, all right, page 62 of the planning application. It shows that there are going to be 12 trees, 1 to 6 tall trees planted betula, pendula, whatever they are, and then 7 to 11 4 to 4.5 metre tall trees, Alnus glutinosa. I assume from the arboriculture those are perfectly reasonable trees in terms of biodiversity gain, but I am extremely concerned about the spacing between them. These are 4.4 metre trees, and I think you could actually get a lot more of them in there, so that they would actually really form a screen. So therefore, I would ask that the committee, if it's minded to pass this, is that you up the number of trees from 12 to 24. But that will be done in debate. The other thing I will say, on all planning applications that involve fences, could we as a planning committee always think about wildlife corridors? All of these fences should be fitted with hedgehog corridors to actually so the wildlife can actually go through. And that should become the norm on all the fences that we pass through this committee. And in fact, it should be a recommendation. It should be a recommendation to all householders as well, that if they are going to install a fence with all their permission, make sure you get a wildlife corridor in there as well. So I would just want to show you probably that particular thing. This is Park Road, lots of terraced houses, lots of garden, and I am saying that the tree should be this side and the fence should be the other side. There are trees that are called perpendicular. We've got the River and Rome regime where the trunk comes up and then it blooms out. So therefore you can actually maintain the trees whichever side of the fence it is, because there's little or no growth below it. So I would hope that the committee would agree to that. I think it's fundamentally important that the residents of Park Road have some protection from the noise of this particular site. Thank you.
Chair, could we just ask Mr. Collinson, please, can you turn your camera off now?
He's too busy on his phone. Mr. Collinson, could you turn your phone off? Your camera off. He's too busy on his phone.
Were there any
That's a
questions?
press
Sorry.
hold, sorry.
Yes, sorry, I
Yeah.
apologize.
Stefan sort of disappeared too quick.
Yes.
Councillor
Sorry, I
McDonald.
did.
All right. Okay, so we mentioned the trees, the silver birch and alder, basically. So in terms of the look of a mix of silver birch and alder, would you have preferred to just have a whole line of silver birch or a whole line of alder, which does a better job in screening?
I think there is a problem with the choice of tree if it's deciduous, which I think it is. These are.
They are.
I think there absolutely needs to be more of them. That's all. And some of them should be coniferous rather than deciduous.
Coniferous, right.
Carnivorous.
Carnivorous,
Sorry.
things like that.
Yeah.
Carnivorous, no, coniferous.
In other words,
The vegan tree.
from the bedroom at Park Road, people should be able to see a mass of green throughout the year.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Gordon,
Rather than
your question.
tweets.
No, I'm fine.
No, okay, Councillor Dragon.
I was going to clarify about the silver birch. Okay, Councillor Kavachak, are you also aware of the other proposed native,
Mr. Collinson, could you turn your camera off, please?
the native planting which is inside consists of hawthorn, which will turn into a tree, holly, which will turn into a tree, and a wayfaring tree. So they're describing them as hedgerow. There's actually more trees. There seem to be quite a few of them. I would also comment there that would you think?
Question, please.
Do you think Jewson would be pleased to have the lads on the in the yard would be pleased in the autumn to have all these leaves blowing around their site?
Anyway.
Well, I think that it should absolutely be looked at, that there's got to be more appropriate trees to provide and more massing in these trees to provide the screening. That's all I'm saying. And when I return to that particular, I might have something else to say.
Right, thank you, Councillor Cabrisham.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we're going to go back to questions for Aiken. A few questions come up, so Councillor Cantor.
I have 3 questions. Can you confirm that those trees are low arboricultural quality just because they are not native?
No, I don't. I have read the forestry officer's appraisal of the existing trees and the arboricultural information that was submitted as part of the applications. And their overall view is that they are not of any significant arboricultural value worthy of protection. Now, we can't protect trees unless they are inside a conservation area or protected by way of a condition or by way of a tree preservation order. I think it's fair, or it's reasonable, even in kind of in layman's terms, if you look at those trees, they're not of a significant quality to put a tree protection order. I just would like to clarify on that point as the landscaping condition that was on the original or the 1986 commission, which has been discussed. That condition, in our opinion, was never discharged, and the existing trees on site do not form part of any landscaping scheme that was agreed. Even if there was a breach, which we think there are because it wasn't discharged, we think there was a breach, it's now immune for enforcement action. If they had been part of a scheme that was discharged, that was formally discharged, the condition required them to be maintained for a period of 3 years, which is well exceeded. And therefore, in any which way you look at it, however, even if you cast ambiguity over it, it's still clear to me that they are not protected by way of a condition.
So, another question is, what do you think about I'm sorry, I'm not that literate in planning things, but the condition that the forestry officer recommends is the general tree protection condition should be applied. Is it possible?
Yeah, because the condition suggested, yeah, a general tree protection mechanism. I suggested that as part of the permission.
Sorry.
And that's to protect the trees that are shown to be retained at the front, which are.
And to last one, to come back to what the WARC member said, as a proud landlord of a few hedgehog and hedgehog dinners, I was wondering if there is condition we could attach to just make some calls to the hedgehog. I asked Paula for big development. She was not very net, but maybe you are a bit.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think in this context, well, our view, the council's view and our ecologist's view is that the existing site has been assessed and there is no real ecological value at the site. But it's limited. It's limited. But highway to the back gardens of Park Road, which are relatively small, mostly courtyard gardens. We're not talking about open fields or countryside. And so I'm not really sure where a hedgehog might move from. That's actually not my assessment. But
could we
Sorry.
add a condition to accommodate possible biodiversity?
We have.
Net gain.
We have a net gain of 10%.
Sorry, so it could include potentially some hedgehog highway. And I hope you'll listen to me.
They've submitted a biodiversity metric and a strategy to improve the ecology of the site and achieve a biodiversity net gain of 10% or more. And we consider that's achievable on the basis of the plans they've submitted. Anything more, I think, would be probably unreasonable.
Okay. I did think about the hedgehog corridor, but I think I can't see many hedgehogs living in that one. I wanted to go into that or out of that.
Can I just?
Sorry, we need to go through questions logically, please, not just. Okay. Councillor Bancroft.
Thank you. Is it possible to change the tree type to evergreen so that you don't have the issue with leaves obviously falling and cluster up the path, and users obviously probably be proud of that. I mean, A, and B, is there such an evergreen that would be appropriate for this sort of situation?
Yeah, okay. So if we are going to request the landscaping or screening to mitigate some harm, it has to be to mitigate some harm that have been identified. Otherwise, it wouldn't pass the tests of any condition. So it has to be reasonable.
The harm here is slippy leaves and people slipping on them down the pathway.
That's not a plan anymore.
All right, sorry. I'll leave it there.
So it's not
the environment.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Anyway, sorry, no, you can. Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't. I think we have to be mindful of the fact that they can remove those hedges and they can put up a fence up to 2 meters in height, okay, without any planning permission required. You've got permitted development and you've got removal of existing trees, shrubs which aren't protected. They can do that without our consent. In my opinion, in our opinion, the scheme, the additional mitigation measures that we've got in terms of green landscaping and biodiversity net gain at the site is actually a huge benefit when compared to a scheme that could be implemented without planning permission. And so, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Just to clarify that point you just made. So they could put up a 2 meter fence without coming to us at all.
Yeah.
It's because they want to put up a 3 meter fence that we're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not about the trees.
No, correct. Not about the trees.
No.
Trees are not development.
No.
It's the fence that requires a planning permission, and that's the prime part of your consideration this evening.
I don't. It just could that's clarified.
That's the Gordon Creed.
So, for me, I have no issue with this. The only issue I have is what Councillor Gavanchak raised, which is to do with impact and environmental harm to do with noise and air, if you like. And so there there would be options to add evergreens. There's a native laurel that grows quickly and is green all year round and could be mixed with the silver birch and the alder. That maybe that would be a consideration that would be easy. And also if the hedging that goes in, if the expert could give them advice on density and so, for example, things that are going to be easier to maintain, not cause a lot of site management issues, and then add to the green screen and biodiversity element, just to consider harm onto what they're used to and what they're getting instead.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure I understand the question.
So the question is, could we add Prunus laurocerasus to the hedge planting to the trees?
We cannot, and the application is what we're considering tonight.
Yeah.
As submitted. We're not in a position at planning committee to make alterations to the proposed scheme. So I can't.
Okay.
No.
You have to refuse permission for whatever planning reasons that would be.
Yeah.
And then seek to try and negotiate, but to be quite frank.
You could actually request, but that's all it would be. You couldn't impose it.
As an informative.
As an informative.
Yeah,
You could
that's
request,
all
that's
that
about
I was
all you could
that
do.
is all I was doing, was requesting.
Yeah.
The landscaping position.
Councillor Sadler.
Yes, Caitlin. You mentioned the fact that we don't really have any control anyway. If they chose to take all the trees down and put a 2 metre fence up, they can do that without coming to us. So going back to Parish Councillor Buckley's point about us providing permission and then those trees being taken down and then causing another effect later on, does that put Oxfordshire District Council in a difficult position, like he's suggesting?
So with regards to the subsidence issue.
Correct, yeah, that's what he was referring to.
No, so that's a civil matter. So it's part of a party wall agreement. So if two sites share a boundary, there is a legal
duty.
Yeah, to have regard to the Party Wall Act, and they have to enter into any agreement about any alteration. That way, it's not a planning issue.
Okay.
Not be.
Yes. Councillor Dragon.
Yes. The planting the hedgerow planting is going to be inside the site, isn't it? And I noticed on this plan here, on their plan, they've got pallet racking of 4.8 metres high up against their existing boundary, and bag stores, and all sorts of things. And it was struck me that we're going to have a risk of, there we are, all sorts of forklift trucks reversing in and dumping stuff on. Can we ensure that there's some sort of protection for this interior hedge, that without, I don't know, some sort of barrier type of thing?
Well, there's a duty to maintain it for a 5-year period upon completion, which is a standard accepted requirement on any landscaping condition. So I agree.
Sort of like,
I agree, Councillor. Maintaining it may be difficult for the company, but again, that's not a planning issue.
Okay.
And it's for them to navigate around.
Yeah. Okay. Don't see any more questions. I'll be looking for a.
So I did have one, but Adrian, you said that ostensibly the planning permission was because of the 3 metre fence, and I know all about lawful development, as everyone going on in Henley at the moment. But it's not. It's also page 58, number 4, landscaping implementation. Surely, if this is part of the planning that we are recommended to approve, then we can suggest amendments to the landscaping plan.
You must consider the application before you as submitted. And in this case, the applicant has submitted a proposal for a 3 metre high fence and a proposal for landscaping. The landscaping condition you have that we've recommended is about its ongoing maintenance, its implementation and its maintenance. It's not requesting they submit landscaping details for approval. We've already got that. That's on your plan.
Yeah, it's not the normal way, but they have submitted it. Yeah, I think we could make recommendations and suggestions and requests, but we can't actually force any changes. Yeah, yeah. Yes, okay. I'm going to go to a proposal. I think when I first looked at this, you've got to remember that this is not a public view. No member of the public can see this. It's all private views from that row of houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no public view at all on this. Yeah. Which is unusual. 3 metre high fences are ugly, but none of those people there, well, it's being done because they complain about noise. Yeah. So in response to their complaint. So yeah,
Sorry,
it's a bit sort of
not wishing to extend it. I don't understand what the point is. The whole point of why we're here as a planning committee is to protect public views, but also
yeah, but this is not a public view. The only public view is actually
and also the privacy of people in there.
It's the private view. It's the private, but they have not complained. There is no objection from that road to this application.
Well, and the town council.
And town council, but nobody in that road has objected.
Thank you.
Councillor Cantor.
I would like to propose a motion to go with officer's recommendation with the change of wording that Officer Caitlin suggested. I would like I don't remember, but Stefan had some recommendation as well to add. I remember.
The request was
with an informative.
That's all
we can.
Additional floral planting rather than some of the deciduous.
I would like to mention that it could have been worse. It could have been a metallic fence, but a timber one, I think it's quite visually okay.
Okay, thank you. Is that seconded?
Oh,
yeah, councillor Bradley, yeah, okay, go on, okay. Right, you can make your speech now.
Well, just a fence, is it? I just hope that with the recommendation that the officer will write, it will be a net gain eventually to replace those trees. The fence will hopefully be enough to protect the neighborhood from noise, and I hope everyone will be happy with it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dragon, this is just
highways.
Look, I don't see much alternative to this proposal. I understand why Dewsons are doing it. Pity they didn't consider pushing the fence further inside and having the planting outside. They get the problem away with the problem of the leaves, and also if they just kept hedgerow type plants, provide all the screening for those residents who couldn't are now probably have to resort to planting ivy on this fence. That's anyway. So
yeah, okay, all right. So we're open for debate. Is there any debate? Councillor James Lorry.
So I disagree with the whole hedgehog thing because I don't know many builders that are hedgehogs. But from what I understand, they have a fence and they have trees and they want to remove the trees, put up a new fence and then replant trees. That is the gist. But they don't need permission to remove the trees except for the 4 that are thing. So they just need permission for the fence. I'm just struggling to see the necessity of this, if I'm honest, because you've got trees, you've got a fence.
They might not want to.
They'll come back to you. Councillor Gabrishak.
I'll explain that very, very clearly. They need permission for a 3 metre high fence.
Yes.
That's why we're here. What we are saying in an informative is if it was just a 3 metre high fence, if you were living in those terraced houses, it would be offensive to you, in my opinion.
I agree.
Right.
I do agree.
Therefore, my point is, I really want the informative beefed up in terms of that there should be additional trees of the type that Ali has said, and there should be more of them as well, so that they are closer together, and so it performs a visual script. That is as an informative, because we cannot insist on it. The only comment I would say is I would hope that Ray from Dewsons would actually see the aspects of the neighbourliness of this site. We love Dewson's in Henley, by the way, and also Elliot's, Gibbs and Dandy. But I think you just need to go a little way towards making sure that the neighbours at Park Road are happy with you. That's all.
Thank you.
But
Anybody else wish to
Yeah,
speak?
yeah.
You've spoken once, sorry. That's all right, sorry. Councillor Sadler.
Yeah, I probably will go, I will go with the recommendation, but I feel that they should put tree protection orders on the ash that they're existing there now. And it's regrettable that they're not going to be so high, but in time, hopefully they will be, and I hope that they will go with the laurel as well, because I think that would be a massive improvement, and it would show good neighbourliness. Hopefully they maintain it as well, so it doesn't become
It will be
get
part-
to the point where
it's part of the application required to maintain it, but well, that's standard enforcement.
What we don't want to do is have cypress that are overgrown and then beyond reasonable repair, which is why we're here.
Could be. Right, okay, I think that's the whole debate. I'll go back to Councillor Cantor to sum up.
Yes, so perhaps to answer Councillor Sam is maybe it's a business. I guess they really need a fence to protect their goods as well. Right. So that's probably my guess why, in addition to the tree, they need that fence. And I'm still happy that they approached the council with this application rather than just do a lower one. And I would urge the committee to agree with the motion with all the additional wording. And I hope in a voluntary manner, we might have some accommodation of the diversity. Who knows? Maybe
Okay.
one day will come.
Okay, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour of the motion, please show. It's unanimous. So thank you very much, everyone. Okay. Yeah. 2-minute hold.
We're adjourned at 30.
Cut off is 8:30. We've got 2 applications to. I don't think we're going to get to the last one, but.
Yeah.
Extend.
Yeah, so
That's to continue with the existing application that is being heard at 30:30. Yeah, if we're happy to do that. Yeah, okay. Propose the same. Yeah, okay. We're all happy with that one. And I don't think we're going to get the last one, but we'll wait and see.
That's mortality.
Too many people in that ring. Questioning. Right, okay, we're now going to time P23 S2462 34 Upper High Street. And this is Mark who's taking it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This application is for the planning committee this evening as the council's recommendation to approve the proposed development conflicts with the view of Tame Town Council, who object to the proposed development. Tame Town Council object to the proposed development on grounds that the proposed development would result in a loss of office space in the town without justification. The development would not be served by adequate private amenity space or parking and cycle storage. This application seeks planning permission and listed building consent to partially convert the building, which is currently in office use, to facilitate the creation of one dwelling. A two-storey extension is proposed to the rear of the property to provide additional office space in an attempt to offset the office space that would be lost within the building. The property is Grade 2 star listed and lies within the Tame Conservation Area. Proposed development would result in a net loss of office space by approximately 26%. However, officers agree that the new extension, coupled with the retained office space, would enable an office space that better adheres to modern standards, and that this level of loss would not be detrimental. The proposal would also allow for the original building to return back into residential use, restoring its historic link to the area. No objections have been made by the local highways authority, despite concerns raised locally with regards to parking and cycle provision. No objections have been made by the council's heritage officer with respect to the impact on the area and the design and form of the proposal. The council's drainage engineer and the county council's archaeology officer raised no objections to the proposed development subject to conditions. Officers take the view that the principle of the development is acceptable as outlined within the report before you, and that the impact on neighbours would not be adverse. The site lies within a central location within Tame, within short distance to local conveniences, a public recreational area and public transport network. It is not uncommon that within a town centre location, dwellings within the central location may not have private amenity space or gardens. In this instance, officers are happy that the recreational ground nearby and the small area of amenity space that is being proposed would be sufficient to address the concerns of the town council. The development is considered to be consistent with policy and subject to the proposed conditions set out within the report before you. The proposed development should be supported and planning permission granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Right, so the first of our registered speakers is Councillor Martin Baines from Tame Town Council. Martin, we saw you earlier.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much, Chairman.
You have 5 minutes. Yeah.
So sometimes it seems that all the world and his wife wants to come and live in Tame, which is possibly why, like for like, the house prices are getting on for double the national average. And it's also why this kind of application keeps cropping up, because whenever commercial freehold appears, there are people looking at it very hard. It's a lovely house. It's as the officer said, it's Grade 2 star listed building. It's 16th century, and in the 16th century, it would have had substantial grounds behind it in its burgage plot, and also actually the other half of the same building at number 35. But restoring it back to kind of that historic status is a lot of hoo-ha, actually, a lot of hooey. It's not a house, it's an office building, and it's been an office building for a while. One of the reasons that so many people actually want to come and live in Tame is because of the vibrancy, because of the zing, because of the busyness of the town centre. And if people keep taking out business premises, your busyness disappears, so to speak. It gets eroded. What they did here is they asked questions if they could actually turn this office building into a house. They got told that they were not allowed to reduce the amount of employment space in the town, so they proposed this nasty little building behind it, and it's not, of course, equivalent to the amount of space that's been taken out with the proposed residential unit, but on some kind of fairly spurious mathematics about open planning, your officers seem to believe that that's actually good enough. The other problem is if you start proposing a new office building, you're into all sorts of guidance about car parking, about bike parking, and which, of course, the new office building can't actually achieve. Our officers are also very concerned on Tame Town Council that putting that building in the car park at the back means that the car park becomes fairly unusable, in as much as it takes a longish while of backwards and forwards to turn a car around in it. It's so tight, and one would probably find oneself backing out onto the main road, which is quite unacceptable. This is in the high street. The high street is where it all happens in Tame. It's a beautiful space. It's been a vibrant area for very many years, from at least the 16th century when this building was built, and for many years before that. Okay, thanks very much. That's our pitch, and we would like you to not keep eroding our high street, thanks very much, but actually throw out this application.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. I have a few questions for you, Councillor Cantor.
I heard about the loss of employment for the town, but did you read the condition 3 that the approved additional office extension shall be completed and occupied prior to the first occupation of the dwelling, thereby to maintain and retain the employment on site?
Yes, I saw that. There's no history of this office building not having been used for long periods. Because it's in a conservation area, because it's right in the high street, it has to be made clear, if you're going to try and justify a change of use to housing, which you can do automatically elsewhere, but not in a conservation area, you need to be able to show that there's a continuity of office use.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Any further questions? I see no further questions, so thank you for your presentation and your time.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, our next speaker is Michael Holliday, who's the architect. Oh, there he is.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to
5
speak.
minutes starting now. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll start off initially by reading a piece written by the client of ours. So Carmichael UK is a local recruitment company established in Tame in 1997, so a very local company. They're a small family business, and they have owned and occupied the property at 34 since 2005. The property was fully refurbished internally prior to the company moving into it, and the layout of the 16th century part of the property retains the original plan form, as this was a requirement of the 2005 planning and heritage requirements. The 2005 development was sympathetic to the building, both in terms of ensuring that the quality of work was in line with the status of the property and ensuring that the heritage of the property was properly preserved. In 2015, the owners carried out a 1 in a 500 year repair to the front, costing them £125,000 plus VAT. This work was carried out to exacting standards by Chris Bowler and commended by all. In fact, it was inspiration for similar nearby renovations along the high street. As the 16th century part of the building must maintain the original plan form, and because this layout is not conducive to current working standards, the owners believe that the change of use to residential for this part of the building would better suit the property in the longer term. The owners of the property hope that their past history of carrying out sympathetic work in a considerate manner will go some way to assuring all concerned parties that all planning requirements will be carefully adhered to in this application. So continuing on from that, they and sort of developing on it, the clients want to reinstate the original usage of that 16th century property at the front back to residential as to how it was originally built at the time. And because of its age, the internal layout is not conducive to modern working standards. When you look at the plan form, there's several room within room situations which end up causing significant amount of circulation space and reduces the number of usable desk and working space. The clients have proposed this extension to the rear, which will allow the usage of commercial on the site, and they are planning to carry on using that office space to the rear, following on from the development and the change of use to the front. I'll leave it there. I know it's a lot of talking tonight, but yeah, happy for questions.
Okay, committee, any questions? Councillor Gordon Creed.
Are they planning to live there themselves?
No.
Are they developing it for themselves?
That's not the plan to our knowledge. They'll be passing it on. They've been looking after this building for the last 15 years and will carry on looking after the retail or the commercial side, I should say, the commercial side to the back, the office space. And then the residential frontage that faces the Tame High Street will then be preserved and looked after by the new owners of the property.
Thank you.
Councillor Gabisher.
Could you please tell me how many people use the offices currently?
Off the top of my head, I can't answer that directly without causing giving an unknown number. Rod Carmichael, who is the current owner, is on this call as well. So if you're happy for him to speak, he can probably give that number.
Maybe I can just ask two questions, and between you can answer them. What is the size of the existing building office space, and what is the size of the new build at the back? And secondly, how many people can occupy the building currently, and how many people is it envisaged to be in the back part when it changes, when its use is changed?
So I'll pull up the figures quickly while I talk. Realistically, as per the planners report, they're happy that they don't believe that there will be a net loss of usable employment space. Yes, the square meterage has reduced, but actually the usable space internally hasn't been reduced. I think Mark has the actual figures in front of him now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, of what because they were on the original planning drawings submitted, the size of the existing and the proposed.
Yeah, I mean, I did.
Yeah, yes, we can get that back off Mark later on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Cantor.
Can you have a comment on what the Oxfordshire Architectural and Historic Society comment that there is inadequate detail provided in terms of acoustic and fire prevention requirements with number 35? Do you know why they are saying that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? It was breaking up on my end.
The Oxfordshire Architectural Society complained that there are inadequate detail provided in terms of acoustic and fire prevention requirements with number 35. Do you know what they are referring to?
So they're referencing, so what they don't want to happen is we carry this proposal goes ahead and there's issues with fire created in 34 that will spread to 35, or likewise vice versa. There is a condition within the report from the planners, I believe, that is in that requires details to be submitted for the walls, but actually the situation between 35 and 34 is not changing from a fire standpoint. But there is a condition on there to do with separation, I believe.
partition wall. That's between the existing in the new house and the offices.
I will
Two
clarify with the officer.
And
that-
two
that's-
partition walls to go. Yeah.
Is it the walls?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we can.
Okay, I will clarify with you.
But yeah, but there is no change between 35 and 34 with this proposal.
Oh, no,
Okay, thank you.
no. I don't see any further questions, so, yep, thank you very much, Ms. Halliday.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, I don't propose to speak as local member, and neither do Councillor Barker or Councillor Gregory. So we'll move straight back to questions for the opposite. So we have a question from Councillor Cantor about the partition wall.
Is it the partition wall?
So their comment actually refers to the notice of providers for the construction of the internal party wall to meet the acoustic fire prevention requirements with number 35. As outlined in the report, they don't there's no details about as such, and if they are going to do that, then they're going to apply for a separate list of building consent for additional works.
But the officers are satisfied with the proposal?
Yes, so our heritage officers have looked into that and understood it. They have some concerns. We've got some conditions outlined for the list of building consent application, which we'll go to in a bit. They haven't raised that.
And like with any changes that may require building regulations, will be assessed appropriately either by us or on building inspection. We'll cover fire rate.
Okay, brilliant, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sadler.
Yeah, so the new dwelling front, what's to be made into a new dwelling, that's from what I can tell from the plan, that's a 2-storey property with 1 bedroom. Is that right? Or is there a bedroom downstairs as well? Or is there may be a 2-bedroom house? Is that right?
It looks as if, yes, on the plan it shows it as a 1-bedroom flat, but obviously, you know.
Oh, 1-bedroom flat.
No, sorry, 1-bedroom dwelling. Sorry. At the first floor, there's a bedroom.
The first floor has got that flyover to the neighbouring property.
It shows us 2-bedroom.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I see the bedroom. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's a
Single bedroom on the ground floor and the double bedroom on the.
But there's no parking provision for that, is there?
So there will be parking provided on the site if you were to refer to my meeting.
Seen that.
Yeah. Page 89.
Yeah, page 89, bottom right hand corner, 2 parking slots.
Oh, right, see.
Yeah. And the hatched area there is the immediate fence.
What's the parking?
What's the parking? The amenity space is the hatched area, the triangle,
Anything.
and then there's 2 car parking slots behind that.
Okay.
It's not showing any parking for the office block, which is normal for town centres these days.
Oh, okay. And just another question as well. One of the neighbour complaints referred to windows. Windows opening which would result in material loss of privacy. Is that the case? I mean, to me, it doesn't look like there's any. Sorry, Evan. We just
Right, we are at past. Sorry, before you answer that, we are at past. I just confirmed that we will not be dealing with agenda item 10 this evening. For those expecting to speak on agenda item 10, which is Kidmore End, it will not be discussed this evening.
So sorry, it's in reference to those, the original set of plans had a window that overlooked that side and they were changed through amendments. So
I see, because when I was looking at the plans, I couldn't see.
Yeah, so
where this window was.
to the rear of the building, the side overlooking 35, there won't be any windows when it's not originally overlooked.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gabishop.
Yeah, can I just ask about the size of the existing office accommodation and the compared with the new? Please, thank you.
The existing commercial area is just shy of 300 square meters at ground floor. No, overall, apologies. It's not clear to see. They are on the ground floor plans, but they're incredibly small in the corner, so I do apologise. Screen.
So is it 300 for ground floor and the upstairs, or?
Yes, 300 overall.
Overall, thank you.
That would go down to 218 with a 141 square residential unit put in.
Right. So the existing office accommodation is 300, the new is 211. The architect implied that you were saying that the configuration of the new 2118 would be better fitted for modern usage.
Yes.
In what way?
But as the architect alluded, there's less. It's more efficient space to be used. Obviously, the original dwelling is old. Its cell units of each bedroom room are quite small. The aspect to the rear obviously is a later addition. That's got a lot more moving space, and the additional aspect will also be built to more modern standards, which would again allow for more space and efficiency.
And you, Mark, you probably won't know the answer to this. How many people are in the office of the existing compared with the new? Will it be sort of like 5 in the existing? And
I
5
don't
in
have
the
that
new?
information, I'm afraid. No.
So we just go on square meterage.
We would, yeah.
It's smaller but better.
Yes, that's the
essence, yeah.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yes, I think we've exhausted that, so I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Cavrachat.
I will propose the officer's recommendation for approval. And I'll just speak quickly. The reason why I'm minded to approve is because I have been convinced that there is no loss of employment to staff. If there was, I would be opposing this, because I think we have to maintain small office units. But from what the officers has said, the office accommodation is smaller, but it might actually be better used, more people, whatever, etc. So therefore, I propose acceptance. Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify, there are 2 applications. One's the full application, one's the listed building. So we'll take the full application first. Yeah, which is what we're talking about now. So are you going to second that? Yeah, you're going to second that. So wish to speak now, or?
I'm happy to speak now to say that it's a win-win in terms of we're maintaining the office in a better configuration, hopefully a bit cooler too, considering the summer we're having, and having the family move in as well. So actually increasing the vibe in the centre of town. Absolutely fantastic place for it to go. So all for that.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're over for debate. Is there any debate? Anybody wish to speak? Yeah.
My only small little quibble there was just the lack of any garden space, and I know where it is. You know where it is. I know there is green space within walking distance. But I would also, in its favour, say that Tame doesn't have very much in the way of smaller space, so I would be in favour very much.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, I'll go back to Councillor Cavrachat to sum up if he wishes.
I have summed up, thank you.
Okay, all right, so we take a vote on the full application, which is P23 S2462 full. All those in favour, please show. Thank you, that is unanimous. And then P23 S2463 listed buildings. We'll look for a proposal.
Proposed, yes.
Seconded. Yeah, is there any debate? No debate. Can we all vote on that one, and please, all those in favour? Thank you, that is universal. Unanimous. It's not as well. Thank you. It'll take a bit longer than we expected. I think we should, but I think we'll have,
Let's confirm the live stream has ended.
yeah.